You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We're locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kademan, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and helpful coach to small business owners across the country. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Erin and Dimitri, the, I would say, owners, founders, best people in the world for Parthenon's Gyros, as well as Yips Yogurt Chips. So I'm excited to meet them. You should be too. So welcome. How are you guys doing today?
Thank you.
We're great. Thanks for having us here.
Excited to be here.
I'm excited because, well, one, Gyros are awesome. I think it's safe to say they're probably a step above tacos, but they don't get the tacos do. So let's start with Parthenon's because I think that's where this whole story started, right?
It did, yeah.
It did. So let's start there.
What do you want to start with?
How long have you guys owned Parthenon's?
Good question. So we actually, Parthenon just celebrated its 50th anniversary.
50th. That's
50th,
50.
half a century.
Half a century. You say it like that, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Did they eat that on the Mayflower?
We had a really fun celebration recently.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, it was a really great party.
Oh, very cool.
So, but it's been in our family now for 3 generations.
All right.
Officially ours since 2017.
Okay.
With just the 2 of us, and ever since then we've really made a lot of changes. We did a complete gut remodel. It gets gorgeous now. Of course, we kept our classic traditional gyros, and they're still made the same way that they have been the last 50 years. Housemade's one of the last places in the U.S. to still make everything in-house, by hand.
All right.
Yeah, we still grind our own lamb. We grind our own beef. We even grind our own peppercorn. We use oregano from Greece, so it's just meat and spices. Most places are from factories. There's a lot of stuff in there, preservatives, fillers, chemicals.
Weird junk, which we're not into. We're all about the natural stuff.
Gotcha. So tell me, just really quick, this may be getting off on a tangent a little bit.
We like tangents.
But when I go to your place, I see the big meat thing that turns.
Yes.
What am I looking at there?
Yeah, that's the ground beef and ground lamb with spices.
Okay.
And that's it.
So it's ground.
It is ground.
So it's not just like a lamb leg that they slap.
No.
We grind it ourselves. So we get the whole cuts and we grind it.
Yeah.
So I always wondered, because I'm like, that's kind of like a leg size, but nah. So I didn't.
Yeah, no. So
I had no idea what I was eating, but I knew it was good.
Yes.
So think about like a burger.
Okay.
With ground beef. This is ground beef and ground lamb, and then ground peppercorn, oregano from Greece. So just meat and spices and that whole thing. And it cooks just the outer layer, and that's what we slice off into a pita with onions, tomatoes, and sauce. And the sauce is our second secret of what makes us the best, is that we make our own Greek yogurt.
So
you can kind of go into that a little bit.
And probiotic cultures. So we use 5 cultures.
Okay.
So it's actually good for you. Our yogurt process is a very long process. We do the entire fermentation, the straining, all of that.
Takes a few days.
It's like a 60-hour process total. And then at the very end of it, we add cucumber, garlic, and lemon to make our tzatziki sauce.
All right.
And then that's kind of where Yips spiraled.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. So those are our 2 things.
All right. So
Gyros
gyro, I
and yogurt.
knew, or I thought, was cucumber sauce of some kind, but I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah, so a lot of them that you get, the tzatziki sauces, it's like a sour cream base and
But
other
weird
stuff. But ours is
ingredients that are in there. Well, ingredients.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ours
We're
is
big
just
ingredient
Greek
readers.
yogurt and just natural food. The things that you're going to find in your pantry.
All right.
That's really important to us.
So that's our thing, is gyros and yogurt. I don't know of any other restaurant in the country actually that makes their gyro and their yogurt.
Oh, okay.
So that's what kind of sets us apart. We've been doing it for 50 years now. And that's what kind of led into this, is we were playing with taking either of those and being able to package them in a way that we can kind of reach more people other than just local Madison.
Sure.
Well, it was also sort of pandemic induced in a way. You know, we originally were like, oh, let's create another product for Parthenon. And then this crazy pandemic came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, right? Do you remember that?
I do.
It hit us really hard.
I bet.
At one point, we're like 80% down, and it was really rough. And so we started looking at what we're good at, gyros and yogurt. And at that point, one of our friends had gotten a freeze dryer. And so we started experimenting, and we got our own. And these things are, they're pricey, but we're like, you know what? If we make a product out of it, then we can actually make something.
Justify it, sure.
Yeah. But then we really started looking into the CPG business, consumer packaged goods at CPG.
All right.
And we're like, wow, this could actually be something. And so we started experimenting with our products. And of course, the first thing that we experimented with were our gyros. And so we took the sliced gyro meat and we freeze dried it. And it was like the worst thing ever.
No.
Just imagine like eating chalky meat. It was awful. So that didn't work. So we're like, okay, what's next? We tried a bunch of different things, but then we tried our yogurt and we're like, wow, this actually has a pretty cool potential.
So hold on, you freeze dried yogurt.
Yes.
So it's like dehydrating.
Okay.
It's similar. But it actually removes more moisture than dehydrating.
Plus, it doesn't use the heat.
Okay.
So dehydrating usually will heat things up, and it will take away most moisture. Let's just say 90%.
Yeah, I have a little home dehydrator. You make beef jerky out of and stuff.
Exactly. So the difference between drying, let's say beef jerky, is beef jerky you can bend it, right? Which means there's moisture still in it. But also because it heats it up, it also kills off a lot of the nutrients that are in it, and the vitamins and things like that.
Okay.
Freeze drying does the opposite. It actually freezes it down the opposite. Instead of heating it up, freezes it down to -40. It removes most of the moisture, let's say 99%.
But it does use a tiny, tiny amount of heat, just to like, so that it can sublimate. So it goes from like an ice state into gaseous state. And it uses a vacuum too. It's really neat.
It's really awesome. It preserves the shape, the color, the size, and it actually preserves the nutrients and the vitamins that are in it. And because it removes more moisture, that same beef jerky that's normally dehydrated and could bend, the freeze-dry one will not bend. It will snap. And you could, if you crushed it in your hand, you could crush it into a powder because there's no moisture almost at all left.
Wow.
So we did that with the gyro, and it didn't bend. It snapped in half, and you could crush it, and it just wasn't good.
Just chalky?
Yeah, it was chalky. It just like turned into a powder in your mouth. And then we tried it with the yogurt, and it was a really interesting texture. And everything takes on a different texture when you dry it, when you freeze dry it.
I bet, because you are removing moisture.
Yeah.
Almost all of it. 99,
and like with
98,
yogurt,
99%.
that's got to be mostly moisture.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like 80%-ish moisture.
Okay.
But what's left melts in your mouth.
Yeah. Actually,
Okay.
It's a really interesting concept. So.
Yeah.
So then we're like, okay, well, this is kind of neat. So we tried the yogurt, and then we were like, okay, this is what we're going to go with. So then we started experimenting with all these different renditions. We did hundreds of different variations.
These are adding flavors.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by flavors, it's we're using
Other
real
foods.
food.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Gotcha.
we don't add any natural flavor.
Okay, I didn't mean like this chemical A.
Oh,
I mean
yeah.
like berries or
Yeah,
honey
exactly.
or
Yep, exactly
whatever?
all
Okay.
of that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
All right.
So most of the things, and the one biggest challenge, and if there was one thing that I could teach everybody, it would be to just look at the ingredients of whatever you're eating. And does it come from nature? Is it natural? Or is it something that you don't know where it comes from? Can you get it from your fridge? Is it at a grocery store? Can you raise it or grow it on a farm? If not, it's probably a preservative. It's probably a chemical. It's something made in the laboratory.
Well, whenever people pick up packages, I feel like when we interview people, the majority of people look first at the nutrition facts. And that's fine.
The
sure.
percentages.
But for us, we try to tell people, count chemicals before you count calories. Like, look at what's in that ingredients list.
Interesting. Okay.
And if you don't see it in your pantry, should you really be putting it in your body?
Sure. Can you pronounce it?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Can
Do
you
you
pronounce
know
it?
where
Do you
that comes
recognize
from?
it? Right, and that's our biggest thing. And that's why everything in here is all natural. And that's actually what led us to even make this in the first place. And that's because we're really busy in general.
I bet.
I mean, restaurants have a tendency to just keep you very busy. And 60, 80,
Always.
100-hour weeks is normal.
Plus, then we have a tendency to take on additional projects
Always.
all the time, as if
That's
we're not bored enough.
entrepreneurs, though,
Right, you gotta
right?
stay
There's
busy.
always the next
Right,
thing.
you need
I
to.
know. You can't say no.
You
You're
can't
like,
stop
yes,
learning.
I want to do that. I want to do this too. So anyway, when we really put this together, when we really started to give it a shot, I was taking classes at the UW. We both were sitting on different industry boards. Obviously, we had the restaurant. Then there was a bunch going on with the pandemic, and so we're like, "Hey, let's create this product too." You know, we were talking about earlier when people tend to do things, they kind of do it all at once.
Yeah.
That's also part of our story.
But it also
Alright.
came from a need because
Yeah.
we're always running around the whole time. Although we had a restaurant, we never sat to eat. We just didn't have time. So
Alright.
we always would eat on the run.
Yeah.
Even now, I'll get food and I'll
You
eat
eat a
it standing.
gyro on the run?
I'll eat it standing, yeah, or
It's
just
actually
really
really
quick.
Good wrap up. Oh, so good.
So
I'm
that-
just picturing like the sauce going everywhere.
yeah, well, that's part of the fun. So
That's
that's
what
where
sinks are for.
You can
Okay.
find
We got
Dimitri because you
napkins.
just follow the trail.
exactly. So that's where it came from for
Yeah.
the snack, right?
Yeah, from
Alright.
just
In
being busy. So
classes.
basically, we wanted to solve yogurt's portability problem. Because I would leave super early in the morning, get home really late at night, but in the morning I would bring my yogurt with me. Well, I always tell people, like, you can't eat with a spoon while you're on the run, and plus it's not like you can carry a fridge in your backpack.
Not easily. No.
So we're like,
And
you
to
know
mix
what?
other things with it, it's just inconvenient.
It's messy, yeah. So
It's difficult.
we're done with that hot mess stuff. Like, let's create something you can actually eat with your hands.
All right.
So then
That's
that was
portable
born.
and also healthy, because also at the UW when you're taking classes, you're trying to
I was
find
looking
snacks
in the vending machines, and it's like potato chips and
Oh, it's
and
garbage.
nuts
Yeah.
and energy bars.
Right.
Like, do you know what's in these things?
A lot of weird
I
stuff.
can't pronounce it.
All right. Or fake sugar, I imagine, is a big, or corn syrup, I imagine.
Oh,
There's
it's
a bunch
in
of that.
it's in everything.
Ooh, let's talk about sugar, because that's a super important thing too.
Sure.
Definitely.
Of course, as a society right now, we're on this like anti-sugar kick, which is great because it's ridiculous how much sugar we consume as Americans. But it's also the type of sugar that we consume. You know, like are
Talking
we
about
eating?
just broad sweeteners
Yeah.
type. Okay.
Yeah, sure, all of that.
But there, as anything, there's like good fats and bad fats and good sugars and bad sugars. And to me, it all comes back to, does it come from nature? Is it natural?
And also,
or
how
is it
much
not?
of it are you?
And
eating?
also how much?
So with us, we put honey in our chips, but also honey it's important. It's been around. It's been a part of our diet for thousands of years. You know, versus corn syrup,
Right.
or any other sort of these sweeteners that are overly processed and things like that. No, that hasn't been right.
Right.
It has a lot of vitamins. It's
Yeah,
prebiotic.
so
it's
we
good for your
love
digestive
honey,
system.
but it's also coming from like the Greek aspect too.
Oh, we
you
eat
know,
honey
it's
with
a big
everything.
part of the Greek diet.
All right.
But with the antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties and all of that, it's like, you know what, we are going to use that.
But also
because-
with yogurt too.
yeah, right. I was just going to say that Greek yogurt and honey go perfectly together.
All right.
Probiotic, prebiotic.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can remember looking at the ketchup bottle, or a ketchup bottle, and seeing that there was corn syrup in there.
Right.
I always thought it was
Exactly.
just smashed
you never
up
think
tomatoes, like-
exactly.
Maybe a little vinegar. How do they?
Right.
Why do they have to
Corn
add
is
sugar
in
to that?
everything.
Or even just a
Corn
sweetener
syrup. Yeah.
to that? Because I'm like, tomatoes are good on their own.
Right. And there are a lot of things with like calories that there's a sweetener, like kind of like NutraSweet. Just because
Right.
it doesn't have calories doesn't mean it's healthy. To me, we look at everything through a different lens. Like I said, is it natural? Is it from nature? And if it is, it has much different properties than something that's calorie-free or
Gotcha.
sugar-free. So that's why we use honey with the yogurt
All right.
for our chips.
But to bring it back to how it all got started,
Yeah.
Yes.
we're talking about the portability aspect of yogurt and how we wanted to solve that. So essentially, hundreds of different recipes later, all of our team at the Parthenon being subjected to try this, do you like that?
Yeah.
By the
And
way,
then-
dried hummus is not good at all.
That was
Dry
that was
garlic
his
hummus.
idea, and it was
Terrible.
Oh,
One of the
Some
worst
good
things I've ever
ideas, you
eaten.
gotta have bad ideas, right?
How are you going to know what's good or bad unless you try them all?
Yeah, right.
exactly.
hummus chalk.
So we were playing with these different recipes and ingredients and the snacks to make eating yogurt easier, but also just to have a healthy snack food, because there aren't that many out there. And then we started, and that was just going to be for the restaurant, to make something just for the restaurant and for us. And then we started thinking about it. We actually had a friend that came to visit us. He had been in Greece just a few summers back. And he was at a dinner out with a bunch of people. And he ended up sitting next to this guy. And this guy had started this snack company with a lot of people start, at least in the food world, they start snack companies for the same purpose, is to just make healthy eating easier and kind of nudge healthy society in a better direction. Anyway, this guy started this company, and he sold it a few years later for a huge amount. It's like $600 million. And
That's a lot of snacks.
that's a lot. It's a lot of snacks. I actually didn't believe it. His name is Peter Rahal, and he started RX Bar.
All right.
And to be totally honest, I hadn't even heard of it at the time. I did some research. I didn't believe it. And it was true. And ever since then, we've listened to every interview or podcast that we could possibly hear, because there's a lot of interviews that he has online.
Yeah.
And we started learning that there is actually a pretty big potential to make this as a business, not just as a product that can help people, but
All right.
as a business to pursue.
So
Then
a
we
whole
just started looking
brand?
into just tons of different snack company founders and seeing what they did and just kind of trying to follow their model
All
and
right.
their path.
And it's very interesting. We've learned a lot from him and from a lot of other founders, including when we ran into him actually a few months ago at a food show out west in California. And we'll get back to this in a little bit, but he was pointing to trying to find your product market fit, which we'll get into in a little bit.
All right.
Anyway, interesting how it started as something to solve problems, and then we started realizing maybe we should pursue this as something bigger, as an actual side business that has potential also to reach more people and to help more people.
So something like this, when I look at this from the very little that I know about food production on the essentially sitting on a shelf, you had an acronym, I can't remember what it is.
Oh, CPG.
CPG.
Consumer
CPG.
packaged goods, yeah.
Yeah, versus restaurant. Or restaurant, your problem is serving it fresh. With packaging, you're trying to keep it fresh, or at least keep it tasting fresh. So that seems like it would take a lot and be busy, and you're essentially pulled in two different directions. One with the restaurant, and then the other with the yogurt chips. So how do you keep it all organized?
We're really good at creating systems.
Ah, the secret to good business. I love it.
Yes, we're obsessed with systematizing everything.
Oh my gosh, that's
So-
a rule for my crew. Systematize everything. I love it.
Yeah.
We don't like to leave anything up to chance or thought,
Memory.
any
Common
of that.
sense.
So we have logs and checklists and manuals and training for everything.
That's always constantly evolving and improving on a daily basis.
That is genius. Yeah, I love that for two reasons. One, when we take on new clients, the majority of them don't have systems. And so we're trying to pull stuff out of their head. And a lot of times they don't even know what they know. They just like, oh, we've done it that way, right? Which, great. In order to grow, you have to document.
You do.
And just two, then you don't miss anything.
Yeah.
If it's systematized, there's never that, like, oh, I forgot to do that this one time, and now all your product is not uniform.
Well, plus on top of that, then, if you don't have systems, you are the one doing absolutely everything.
Right.
You're working in the business, and when you are constantly in the business, you cannot be working on the business. And so there is no growth. And if there is, it's slow, which is fine if you want that, but ultimately what we want is to be able to continue to do more things and put these systems into place so that other people who are smarter than we are and who are more capable than we are can continue down this path that we've sort of created and make it even better.
Sure.
Yeah, and we can help teach them and empower them to do more. It's kind of the difference between fishing or catching a fish for someone and helping them learn how to fish to catch their own fish, and that's what this is all about too. And also going back to what you were saying about with restaurants, they are both in the food industry, food business, but they're drastically
They're so
different.
Actually, we didn't realize just how different they were until we got into this CPG the CPG aspect of it. And we're like, wow, this is completely different. I mean, the only thing that's the same is the food.
It is food.
It's edible.
Yeah, but even like you were saying, for a restaurant, you want to try and keep it hot and fresh at the moment to cater to your surroundings, the people that are able to drive to you or walk to you.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, one of the interesting things about freeze drying also is that because we remove the moisture and we seal it, these could stay outside of a refrigerator, shelf stable, for up to a year, if we do it right, for multiple years. So you're essentially eating healthy Greek yogurt that doesn't need to be refrigerated years later.
All right.
And that's actually how the technology came about, going back to that, is through astronauts. This is how they eat. They freeze dry all their food, remove the moisture, and they're able to eat their foods for years later without eating.
But disclaimer, we only put a 9-month shelf life on ours.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you mind telling me why? Or
That's just what we've tested too.
Gotcha.
I mean, we can go longer than that. We've tested longer than that, and eventually we will go longer than that.
So how,
as we grow, it's going to
As
be
we grow.
extending.
this is more a curiosity question, and you can totally tell me if you don't want to answer this because I don't know. What is the official test? Is it just open the bag and if it's moldy, you're like, okay, well, a week before? Or is it more like stick it under a microscope or some magic machine?
There are a lot of different ways that you can do it. You can do lab testing. A lot of the smaller businesses will just take a whole bunch of different samples throughout time, stick it on a shelf, and then they will open them over time and then do lab testing too.
All right.
There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it,
So they're
depending on
testing
how
for
big you are.
microbes or anything? Or is it
They
just
do
a
a
sniff
lot
test?
of that. No. There's microbe testing. There's
Moisture.
moisture testing. There's water activity. There's a whole bunch of different tests that you can
You
do.
can also eat it to see if you get sick. I do it all the time.
Well, I also wonder.
That's Dimitri's favorite method. He's like, well, I'm just going to eat like 10 bags of it for fun.
But then we do the technical.
But no, we do
part of it
the
also.
real part of it. Don't
Okay.
worry.
But I
It's kind of neat too because this product is probiotic, and so we have it lab tested too to see
To make sure that they
the
live.
cultures
If
are
that they live.
surviving.
Okay.
Yeah.
I imagine a lot
it's
of it
really
has
cool.
to do with the packaging itself, right? 'Cause
That's really
glass
important.
jar
Exactly.
versus plastic bag versus foil bag, or
If
Yeah.
it's sealed correctly.
And
right.
also, like, have you removed the oxygen? Do you have an oxygen absorber in there? Do you do nitrogen flush? There's so many different options. And so as we were developing this, we were working with dairy scientists. We were working with R&D directors with different operations. And they
All right.
really helped us think through all of the different aspects that we had to do in order to make this food safe. So I mean, there is a lot of overlap with restaurants. You know, like we've got all of our SOPs in place, standard operating procedures,
Gotcha.
and whatnot. Sorry, acronyms.
No, you're good. You're good.
But we have all these things in place, and so we were able to translate that into this
All right.
essentially.
Nice.
Yeah, but obviously you want to even take this up another level because this is sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
And reaching more people. That's more difficult to trace. We have to be more on top of things in general.
So it's interesting because as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, there's the food aspect, but there's also selling it. You're relying on people in a restaurant to come to your business. With this, you're relying on managers of a grocery store, I imagine, to put it on their shelf. And you have no idea who the customers are
Yeah.
directly anyways.
That's
Yeah, there
been
are a lot of challenges there.
That's been a difficult part of it. We do a lot of direct-to-consumer from our website,
Okay.
and so then we are able to trace who's purchasing it and really kind of target people
Okay.
that we think would really
Just
enjoy
I
this
imagine
product.
demographics or target, whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot that
busy
you can do
people
with
or whatever.
advertising. We haven't done a whole lot of digital advertising,
Okay.
but we've done some of it. But there's a lot of functionality when it comes to that. But yeah, but what you're saying, when you put it on a grocery store shelf, you don't know who's buying it.
No.
There are companies that you can pay an absurd amount of money to
Oh, I'm sure.
where they can
Right.
tell you that, but we're just so small right now where that doesn't make sense. So what we've been trying to do is a decent amount of demos, especially in the local area. And
Okay.
Just
giving
getting our name out
samples,
there,
essentially?
giving our samples out there,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, or
And
sending to people around the country.
Yeah,
maybe,
we
maybe
do.
social media influencers, different types of people.
All right.
We do a decent amount of that too. Just trying to get the name and the brand out there right
All
now.
right.
It's not about making money at this point. We're a startup.
Yeah, we're still tiny.
Good luck
Right.
if you're a startup and you're actually making money. You know, so right now it's about just trying to get it in more people's hands.
But also with this, the good thing is that we are the first, this is the first of their kind, the first dried yogurt, natural yogurt that exists. That's the good thing.
Exists at all?
Well, so there's the closest thing to it are like the baby yogurt melts.
Okay. I'm not familiar, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. They're like tiny little yogurt, freeze-dried
dried
yogurt,
yogurt
melts
Okay.
for babies.
Oh.
But for ours, it's the ingredients are a little bit different. The style is different.
We try and go more natural with ours, a little bit
Got it.
healthier,
Okay.
things like that.
Ingredients you can pronounce.
Yes, and you know what they are. So
All right.
it's a good thing that we're the first of their kind for adults in natural ingredients, but it's also a bad thing that we're the first of their kind because it's not very easily categorized.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
think of a grocery store, where do they sit, you know, with other
Plus, there's
categories?
an educational component to it too. You know,
Oh, I do.
people come to us all the time like, oh, so these are yogurt-covered potato chips, and we're like, no, bro, they're
No.
not.
Oh, that's
and people think about yogurt covered anything,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
whether it's pretzels or raisins or whatever it is, and they have the misconception that it's healthy because it's yogurt covered.
Yeah.
But if you look at the ingredients, it's
just straight up sugar.
It's a sugar coating that's on there, and it's nothing to do with real yogurt. It's
Got it.
not great. So
so.
we have
It's
to
so funny that you
differentiate.
guys mention that because I teach some business planning classes, and I always tell people it's better to be number 2 than number 1 because, and I always use
Pave the way.
I use massage therapy as the example because I'm like, can you imagine just telling a random person, be like, look, get
Right.
naked, lay on the table, I'll put some nice music on, dim the lights,
You'll be fine. Yeah.
and I'll just rub you with
and
oil.
they're going to be terrified.
right? Or they're gonna like it too much,
Right.
But now massage is everywhere. So I'm like, somebody had to be the first one, and they had to
Right.
break that mold, educate people,
Yeah.
deal with that. So it's tough to be number 1.
Yeah. Well,
It is.
especially kind of the way we did it. So initially, we had this plan where we were going to launch in our restaurant and then go local, regional, national.
You kind of build out in
And yeah,
circles.
which is, makes sense, right? But I have this habit of kind of doing things.
Overcommitting.
All right.
Not true. So
Entrepreneur.
So I did a
going too
thing.
far ahead.
Okay, I always come home and I go to Dimitri. I'm like, so I did a thing, and he's like, oh no, what did you do? Where I started submitting for these awards.
Okay.
And this is like well before we even launched the business. Like we didn't even have proper packaging at the time. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it, you know?
You're talking 2020?
Yeah. So this was end of 2020. I started submitting for these awards for Yips Yogurt Chips, which we do have to talk about the name too.
All right.
Because
We definitely do.
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so I get a notification in like February 2021. They're like, congratulations, you're semi-finalists in Foxtrot Market's nationwide up-and-comers awards, and we're gonna put you in all of our stores across the U.S. And I'm like, oh wow. So I did a thing,
About 16
and
stores at the time, I think.
something like that.
14.
And
More than
I'm like,
one?
so we
More than
need
one.
to get going on this. And so we just had like a hot second to like get all of our packaging together and like get everything into
We didn't
place.
even have it on our website, or the website wasn't even up and running.
We didn't even sell it in Parthenon yet. So I did a thing, and we sort of went national before we even started selling inside of our restaurant.
But we were close. We put it together very quickly.
We did. We had like all the components
a couple
in place.
days.
That's awesome.
And it
Did you
just
say
kind of
days?
Within a couple of days. Yeah, we weren't selling. We weren't online. But we were ready. Everything was kind of coming together. But you always need a catalyst.
You
That one
really do.
spark to
Right.
kind of set the whole thing up.
Yeah.
because ultimately you never
You'll
know
never be
when
ready.
it's good enough, when it's ready.
Right.
You
You'll-
know,
you'll
and
never be
someone
ready.
Wait for
needs
these
to
stars to
almost-
align.
Yeah, never.
Someone
Never.
almost needs to like pull the trigger for you in a certain way
Sure.
for you to be
Boot
like,
to
okay,
butt,
let's do
right?
it. Yeah. Which is another thing that we come across when we're speaking to other entrepreneurs and
Or creatives in general.
entrepreneurs. That they get to this point where it's just analysis paralysis.
Oh my gosh.
Over planning, just
Yeah.
trying to think everything through. And there are
Yeah.
way too many things that you'll never know until you actually get 10, 100 steps
Right.
down the road.
And at some point, you just have to know when it's good enough
And just
where you
jump.
can jump. And then you figure everything out as you're
Along the
falling
way.
off the cliff.
Right. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that goes with just about any big decision, right? Whether that's relationship
Sure.
or
And we're not talking about making risky decisions. We're talking about do your analysis, but at some point, don't let it become paralysis, because we see that way too much.
yeah, action or sometimes right. I mean, there's 50 million quotes, right? Good enough beats perfection.
Yeah, sure.
I
Right.
guess, and good enough can actually get done.
Yeah,
Right.
And in the end, you can always find a reason not to do it.
of course.
So, I mean, some excuse.
Right, of course.
But in the end, do it.
It's much easier not to do something. So
Oh, so yeah. I was going to do this, but, right?
Right.
Like, nobody wants to hear the story about how you almost jumped out of a plane.
Yeah, yeah.
Great
Right.
story.
Wow.
That's what we do. So now we just jump off a cliff.
Yeah.
And figure out how to build a plane on the way down before we crash land.
That's not true. We have the blueprints ahead of time.
Right. You gotta have
Nice.
something ahead of time.
Brought a couple parts.
We have a couple.
Got a
Right.
prop.
Right.
Nice. So tell me, I want to talk about the packaging,
Yep.
the colors, and just the mechanics of the packaging.
The name and everything. Yeah.
Because this always fascinates me with food. How when you go to a grocery store, like who decided on this size, this weight, and all that kind of
A
stuff?
lot of research.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went and analyzed store shelf after store shelf. We did a bunch of competitive analysis, figured out like what products we would sit next to on a store shelf.
Surveys, talking to people.
A lot of surveys. Yeah, a lot of research.
All right.
Buying samples, bringing them home, comparing the size, the height,
The
width, the weight, how much portion. Eat it.
The
If you're
serving
hungry,
size,
eat.
the
Yeah, the serving
ingredients.
size. Eat the whole thing. Are you full? What would it be? Is it a snack? Is it a meal replacement?
Yep.
All right.
Even down to the graphics we put into it, the fonts, the colors, all
Yeah.
of
The
that.
color, does it stand out or not? We even bring it into stores and put it on the shelf with other ones. Does it stand out? We take a lot of pictures. And
They-
Leave
lot
it
of
on the
things.
shelf.
So this is so interesting because when I saw you speak originally, I guess I didn't pay attention to the bag. I see the little stars and stuff on that.
Yep.
And is that you?
Yeah,
that
that's
is her,
my
that-
sad face.
That crazy person.
That's not all. So I love the marketing aspect that you guys have going on. Or
Thank you.
maybe marketing is the wrong phrase.
Branding,
Just
maybe?
the branding. Thank you. The design, the colors, the fun kind of tongue in cheek, and it's fun.
We wanted a brand that kind of encapsulated our personalities.
All right.
Like we like to have fun, and we want to bring that out in our packaging, in our brand, in our voice, in our brand's personality. Like just something witty and quirky and loud and bright, and something that I will enjoy selling.
Oh, I love that.
I want to
And
enjoy
you can stand
selling
behind, you can support and things like that. And also, it even comes down to the name, too.
Yeah,
So-
tell us about Yips.
The name. So the name is interesting
It
because,
was kind of started off as a joke.
well, it's kind of like trying to name a child. You know, how do you decide on one name?
Well, that starts off as a joke.
Maybe. Yeah, it depends.
Maybe.
After a beer or
We'll
two.
call
no.
him Brett.
Yeah. So in this case, we just, as we're trying to think of like the perfect name, we needed to come up with the name, so we didn't keep calling them these yogurt chips as we're talking for weeks or months.
Yeah.
So we just decided to combine yogurt and chips. And we
You
just
use
came
a
up with
portmanteau
Yips.
and you stick it together.
Yeah, so
Super simple.
Yips is
So we kind of did
yogurt
that
chips.
temporarily, and then it
Until we
just
came up with
kind
the
of
perfect
stuck.
name.
And then it kind of goes back to the analysis paralysis thing. Like, oh, how long do we figure out the perfect name? Or do we just like jump with this, and then if it's necessary, then we do some sort of rebrand later?
Right.
But ultimately, people ended up liking it. Plus, it's fun in that you say it, and you're like, yep, 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 yep. You know how you say
I do.
yep all
So
the
you're,
time?
you're
You say yep.
subconsciously saying yes, yep, yep throughout the day. So you're kind of saying the name throughout the day. But also little things like logically that we thought of after the fact that we do like that it's a single syllable. It's easy to say. It's easy to pronounce. And
It's unique, and since Yips are the first of their kind, essentially, it can kind of potentially be like the Kleenex or the
Right.
Q-tips
The
or
Xerox.
the Pop-Tarts, you know, like you're not going to call it a toaster pastry. That's a Pop-Tart. I don't care what brand it is. So that's what we want, is for people to eventually, we know more yogurt chips will eventually come out, and that's fine. You know, there are thousands of bars.
That'd be a
and-
good thing because that would reduce your education component.
right,
Exactly. But we want them to say, oh, they're Yips. You know?
Got it. I love it. And it's such a small word that it can fit anywhere.
Yep.
And I think it'd be very tough to be upset and say Yips.
Yep. That's true.
Tough to be mad and
Plus,
say
Right.
going back to the
Right,
whole
it's
brand
fun.
personality and playfulness, we can use so many different slogans. Like I always say yippee and yip yip hooray. And
all right.
on the bottom of the bag it says, put your lips on these yips.
Does it really?
Yeah,
That's awesome. Oh, clever.
it's fun.
Reseal tightly to keep them crisp. I love it. Tell me about the bag itself. How do you decide mill thickness and
More
is this
research.
plastic or is this metal? I didn't know what I'm holding
And
onto.
talking to people that know what they're talking
And, yeah,
about.
know
We
more than
really
us.
like to surround ourselves with people who know more than we do.
All right. Smart
Smarter than
move.
us.
If
Yeah.
we are the smartest people in the room, we are in the wrong room. Like that is a slogan that we live
You
by.
guys got to take a walk. No, I'm just kidding. Tell me also, this is an interesting thing when I'm talking with people that have stuff that they throw on the shelf to sell at grocery stores or whatever. You have to come up with something that's packaged, but you also have to figure out a way to actually package it. And some of those machines can be psycho expensive. So how do you scale something like this to be like, okay, in our little kitchen, or big kitchen, I suppose.
Little kitchen.
Big kitchen's working out well, but now we got 75 grocery stores that want to host this.
That's exactly where we're at. What we're trying to figure out right now. So
Oh,
right
okay.
now,
Okay.
right now we're still very small. We're still very manual and hands-on. But we are in the process of scaling our operation.
All right.
Getting an additional space, getting bigger equipment, figuring out more of a continuous process because it's so laborious right now. We
bet.
need to get these bigger machines that are able to automate and increase our production capacity because right now we are completely limited by our production capacity.
Okay.
So once we're able to do that, then we'll be able to actually start scaling this thing and start implementing our plan. We have a lot of plans.
And learning about this business, a lot of these companies, how they started, including RX Bar, is that they would create a product, and then initially everybody would have to make it on their own. That's how everyone starts. And then once you need to scale up, it's much easier to go to a contract manufacturer to make them for you.
Sure,
Okay,
they
yep.
specialize in that.
Sure.
And
And then
there are
you
pros
can
and
focus
cons.
on the sales and the marketing.
Exactly, because there are two completely different businesses, the production and the sales and marketing and branding and all that.
Right.
But again, pros and cons to everything. You can scale up quicker, but also with a lot of that, especially in the last couple of years with supply chain, are you able to get ingredients? If you do, how much more expensive are they? From a quality standpoint,
You lose control of it.
Of the
Sometimes
quality.
you lose control of your own recipe. And then
Right.
what we've had from friends, several friends who have gone to contract manufacturers, is if you are too small, you're the first to go.
Yeah, you're in the bottom of the list. So they focus on
so
their
if they have
biggest.
capacity,
So there's
and they got to trim.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of positive aspects to it, but there's a lot of negative ones too.
Right.
So for us, our goal was always to start it, figure out the process, and then hand it off to a contract manufacturer who would be able to allow us to scale it. And we went throughout the country speaking to endless contract manufacturers.
And physically going to
Going
these
to their,
factories.
working with their R&D teams, even getting to trials, and no one was able to make it because it's such a unique process and product.
Which is why it
And-
doesn't exist yet.
Yeah,
Other
it's
than this.
it's
Well,
very
like
difficult.
You're learning, like, this is a huge pain in the butt. I get
Yes.
why
Like,
Like, what do
nobody's
we
done
get
this.
ourselves into
We're like,
here?
why do we do this? But it really just like recently, within the past couple of months, it came down to the point of like, well, we either scrap this or we do it ourselves and we commit to doing it on a bigger level. And so we had kind of a heart to heart, and we both decided we're not ready to scrap this. Like for us, it has too much potential. There's been too much buzz generated around it. Like we know what it can be. And so, well, let's just do it then. And so that's what we've been planning now, is a build out of our own facility. I mean, we already have our own facility, but like a bigger version of it
Sure.
to be able to actually produce it so that we can grow.
I imagine the production difference goes from, hey, we can make a few hundred bags, maybe a couple thousand, to well,
Yeah.
now we can make 250,000 bags, which
Right.
means we got to sell a lot of bags in
Yeah.
order to justify the expense of all that equipment and
And the
investment.
equipment is very, very expensive.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, especially with freeze dryers. Again, why do we get into like the most expensive food production?
It's not just that. It's also once you're making something, let's say in your home, or in our case, our commercial kitchen, you're still doing it because you don't have the room, because you don't have the all the equipment to do this. It's a lot of hands-on. It's manual labor. You're literally doing it by hand. But then at some point, when you scale up, you can't keep doing this all by hand. You have to get equipment. Think about a factory. It's
Right.
automated for the most part. And there's a huge gap in between doing it all by hand, like cooking something at home or in a commercial kitchen, or a factory. And there's there's a huge learning curve. There's a lot of money
Oh, I
invested.
bet.
And that's kind of where we are now, is learning how to minimize that gap so we don't take these huge risks in investing a lot of money that might or might not work. We're kind of building and learning along the way, step by step.
I imagine
Correct.
at some point you have to get the sales and marketing to meet,
Yes.
or even
They have to dance
start
together.
paying for some of that stuff. And
Exactly.
that's tough. Once you flip the switch to the big equipment, you're like,
Yeah.
sell,
Right, yeah,
sell, sell.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because they're two different worlds that need to balance along the way.
So I'm happy that we were able to launch when we did, from where we did. We were able to build a little bit of hype behind it, get more of an audience, get it into retail stores, and so now it's kind of allowing us to get to that next level. I mean, there's been ups and downs and
with any
heartache
business, right?
along the way for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just recently we had a kind of a major kick in the butt. But yeah, that's allowed us to get to where we are now.
All
And
right.
it's not going to be like, oh, we flip a switch and now we're going to produce this much and now we have to have the sales keep up with that.
Yeah.
It's still going to be incremental
Okay.
to an extent.
And just like the path to anything worthwhile or fulfilling or successful in life, or even just growing anything, it might succeed, it might not.
Right.
But it's not linear at all. Everyone just
No.
thinks, oh, you start and you do this and now you're millionaires, and that's not how it works.
No,
it's just
no.
it's back and forth and ups and downs and
Or
all over the
my
place.
favorite too. Oh, you own your own business. You must make your own hours. It must be so nice to
Oh,
make your
yeah,
own
yeah.
hours.
Where do you
That
park
one's
your
my
yacht?
favorite. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I get
So
it.
we always tell people too when they're thinking about, doing their own business and getting into the entrepreneurial world, that it's a lifestyle and they
Totally.
really, really have to want to live it, because if you're not doing 60, 70, 80, 100 plus hour weeks, especially in the beginning, and the beginning is years long,
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, right.
years.
Yeah, forever. And also, you have to be very, very okay with failure and not taking things personal, and just always just defeat after defeat after defeat, because there is no winning or losing. If you're open to learning, you will always move forward, and that's
It's
the
an
biggest
infinite
thing.
game.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So you just can't take anything personal. You can't stay down for long. You're going to have these hits. It's going to bother you. You're going to be off for a day. But then the next morning you get up and you just keep going.
Yeah.
You figure it out along the way.
It's like a good boxing match, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to have, on the other side of it, you're going to have the positive things. You're going to have the great stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And we always tell ourselves, okay, we can celebrate for an hour or two. Maybe we can celebrate for the night. But then the next day, we're back at
going.
it.
Right. Right. Because you
Right.
get too cocky. And then you
Yeah,
just
it's on
drop
both
down.
ends.
Yeah.
Give yourself that day, and then the next day you start over fresh and you start all over again.
Yeah. I always say nobody gets excited to go on a flat roller coaster. So
Yeah, right.
it's just ups
Right.
and downs, ups and
Exactly.
downs.
You got to be cool with all of it. Right.
Tell me about distribution, because I've heard a lot of stories, good and bad. Some on the alcohol side are, broadly speaking, bad. But chips, you don't have
Yeah,
any
well,
alcohol.
we also know that through, the restaurant
Oh, I bet.
side of it,
Sure.
through the distributors. But anyway,
So
right
from
now,
national or local, whatever.
yeah, so right now we're not using distributors.
Okay.
We're only doing direct to retailers and direct to consumers.
Okay.
I guess we sort of use a middle type distributor called Fair, where
Okay.
they essentially just act as a platform where we can connect with retailers and retailers can order through their platform.
All
But
right.
that's the only type of distributor that we use right now because our margins and our production capacity can't support having
gotcha.
this sort of middleman
Okay.
in there. But distributors are very, very expensive.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had a lot of friends have a lot of nightmares, but at the same time, it's necessary.
part of the game.
It's just part of it.
Yeah, imagine you're not throwing stuff in the back of a van and driving to California. So
No, but we do ship nationwide.
Okay.
We do have retailers nationwide, and we also have consumers who order from our website that are nationwide, and so we do ship that way.
But shipping is a whole thing, because I go to
It's a
ship
whole thing.
computers to my employees, and I'm like, I think I could have bought it on Amazon and had it shipped
Right.
for what I paid to have it shipped.
Yeah.
So, which is one of those like, I feel like I'm supplementing something here. So, I mean, these are relatively light, but I imagine it's still something you have to ship. So.
Yeah. Well, we are really lucky that they are very light. That's
Okay.
another thing about the freeze dry
And shelf
process
stable.
is we lose
There's time.
60-70% of that weight in
All
there.
right.
So weight-wise, it's great for shipping.
Okay.
And yeah, in terms of the heat and the stability in shipping, it's like the perfect product.
Yeah, it's
to
not something
send
that's
it out.
frozen or refrigerated. That needs to be there the next day.
Or a
We have
glass
time.
jar, which is super heavy,
Oh,
fragile.
sure. Okay.
Like these, you can just throw them in the air and drop them, and they'll be fine. They might crush a little bit, but they
Sure.
still taste great.
Okay. Okay. So I guess the other question, is about the cost. When people are on their website and they click, a lot of people assume that shipping is just magically free
Right.
from some other e-commerce retailers, right?
Yeah, it's
And like
magic
shipping
how
is
that
not
works.
magically free.
No, it's a big cut. So that's
Yeah.
why on our website we have a threshold where if
Oh,
it's
minimum
under
spend
X
or something?
amount, then they'll have
exactly.
to pay for shipping. But we don't jack up the shipping. It's like this is literally what it costs. If
Right.
it's $9 to ship something, it's $9 to ship something. But once it's above, say like $50 or something like that, we just eat the cost of shipping.
Gotcha.
It hurts a little bit, but at the same time, it's also fair.
Right.
They're
it's
getting
volume.
more, yeah.
Okay. Sure. Got it.
And it is a different avenue also, which didn't really exist as much in the past, where you can do direct-to-consumer online. Whereas before, it was just kind of grocery stores. And
Yeah.
in order to go to grocery stores, you have to, in order for the mass distribution, you need distributors and things like that. But that's where kind of scaling up kind of fits into that, where you can produce something for cheaper to accommodate for that extra cost of the distributors to go into more than mass distribution.
I
So-
suppose once you're on scale or each
Yeah.
scale
Well,
is
also
a
we
step.
have this omni-channel distribution strategy
Okay.
where we are doing direct-to-consumer on our website. We're doing direct-to-retailer. Eventually, we'll include the distributors in there, and eventually we'll get on Amazon too, because you have to be on Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to, but
Right. I get it.
you kind
Totally
of do.
understand. Yeah.
So yeah,
They have an audience.
having all of this all together will help if say one falls, because that's a lot of what happened during the pandemic.
All right.
But one of the most difficult parts of it, but I think one of the secrets that we're learning, and we're learning from
You're talking about product market fit.
product market
Of course
fit.
you
We
are.
were learning from Peter Rahal, the RX Bar.
Yeah.
Well,
We
and
met
a
him.
bunch of other people too.
Many people.
That's like the number one thing, and it's also something that we're still trying to figure out.
What did you? Product
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 market
market fit.
Can you explain that?
So you have the product.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to find your market, and you got to figure out how to reach them in the most efficient way possible. For example, if you make a product, a food product, your natural tendency is to go into grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
That's where food goes, grocery stores. But there's a couple things with that. You go into a grocery store, you have thousands of competitors.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when people go there, they're also value shopping. They're trying to find the cheapest product they can.
Depending on the grocery store that you go into.
Depending-
But that
Sure.
also
They're all a
goes
little
down
bit
to
different.
product market fit. So for us, we need to be very careful and not necessarily put our product in conventional grocery stores because we're not going to find the consumers who are going to want to purchase our product there.
Okay.
The ones that are looking for, that are health conscious, that are looking for healthy products. And maybe they're not as
Like value driven.
right.
All right.
Like cost is not as big of an issue to them. We're not competing with like Cheetos or Doritos or something.
And we're concerned about what's going in their body rather than out
Exactly.
of their wallet kind of thing.
Exactly. So, so going back to our X Bar, what they did the first 2 years, they sold online and they went to CrossFit gyms specifically. So think about how specific that is. Not grocery stores. They didn't go into
That's
that.
pretty
Not just gyms. CrossFit gyms,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what kind of got them their start. And they had a back door into the market.
All right.
So that's one of the biggest challenges, trying to figure out exactly who our market is and how to kind of go into a back door to find them specifically with not as many competitors.
And several of the companies that we've seen that have found success have found side doors, not necessarily back doors, but more side doors. Like,
Sure.
what are the different avenues that they can take that's not just getting it on a conventional grocery store shelf,
All right.
where it can reach your perfect target market, the people who are going to be the die-hard fans. Those are the ones that you need.
All right.
And so that's something that we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
And we're also trying to figure out along those lines how to categorize it. Because it's so unique, it doesn't fit into the chips category. It doesn't fit into the yogurt category.
All right.
And so we're trying to figure out where do we put it on shelf in order to do this. And so this has taken a lot of experimentation. And even recently, we got a pretty big gut punch because one of our bigger retailers ended up dropping us, which was my fault. It hurt, and
It's not
I
a fault,
learned.
it's just a learning lesson.
No, but it was my fault because I wanted to experiment. We were in a category, and I was like, you know what? We probably shouldn't be in that category. Let's try
We're more
to.
with the candies, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Sure.
we're not candy at all.
Sweets and
And so I
candies.
was like, you know what? Let's try putting it in like the dried fruits category or
And
the
nuts
yogurt
and things like
category.
that.
And so it just didn't work in those sections because people go into those categories and they're looking for dried fruits or they're actually looking
just
for
nuts.
conventional yogurt, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting learning curve trying to figure out where are we going to put this. I have some friends that have these products, and for example, there's one that has chips, and she won't go into the chip aisle because she doesn't stand
Potato
out there.
chips?
Yeah, she'll go into the produce aisle, and
All right.
that's where she does well. So that's
Or
where we
in
need
bars,
to get really
'cause
creative.
Right? Because bars have beer and beer with chips. So
Right.
and she doesn't have many competitors. When you go in there, it's one of the few, maybe the only ones that'll be in there.
All right.
So that's
Is that
kind-
Christine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
from
been on
Sly.
here.
She's brilliant.
Years ago.
Yeah.
We've,
Great.
we've learned a lot from her.
Yeah.
From
smart
a lot of
woman.
people.
Very
yeah,
smart
we
woman.
try to learn from everyone we meet. And that's the big thing, is kind of going directly to the market. So find the product and attach it, connect it to the market directly.
All right.
And that might be health conscious parents that are looking for a snack for their kid that
Yep.
doesn't really exist, that they don't want something like Doritos or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Or it could be someone that's maybe in yoga, or who knows. That's what we're trying to find, to kind of
Yeah.
narrow in.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm thinking like my kid's in sport, so I could see that at his.
Or
You know,
camping, or
that's actually
hunters.
what we're finding too. Is originally we didn't want to market toward the children. We wanted to market toward essentially millennial women usually.
Okay.
But what we're finding is
Health-conscious
that
adults.
just health conscious adults in general. But I mean, you know, you really got to niche down so that you can target someone specifically.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just targeting everyone and you're not getting anyone.
Yeah.
But
If
what
everyone's
we're-
a target, no
Exactly.
one's a target.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Get lost.
in trying to like niche down, what we're finding is that people are buying them, but then the people who are consuming them are their children. I mean, they're like
Yeah,
the kids
to
are stealing
me-
their snacks from their mothers, which is cool that it's
Yeah.
working that way.
Or fathers.
This is so my
Sure.
kid specifically is one of those kids that gets hangry.
Yeah,
So
I do too.
it's
I don't blame
always
them.
like he's like a mugwai, right? The rules just keep him fed all the time, and he's always moving, so it's one of these like this is clean,
Yep.
right? He doesn't have yogurt all over him, whatever.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And it's
On the
kind of
back a
fun,
car.
and it's
not
convenient.
candy, so
Yeah, it's not candy.
but
You're
they're
not just,
still gonna enjoy the flavor.
right. You're not giving them some trash granola bar or something like that.
Yep.
So this would be, I think, there's a convenience factor
Yeah.
that I think is
Plus, you don't have to worry about your kids smearing yogurt all over the back car window.
right. Oh my gosh, the minivan smell, right?
Yeah, delicious. You love that sour yogurt.
Oh, it's funny. How can people find these?
So we are online at yipsyogurtchips.com. And also, we're in several stores around the Madison area, and then
Including
some
Parthenon.
throughout the U.S. Of course,
And
we're in
Parthenons. And tell us, where is Parthenons? For the people that don't know.
people that don't know.
It's
we're-
at 316 State Street. It's
Downtown
right
Madison.
downtown Madison, right in the middle of State
I feel like
Street.
people know Parthenons more than they know the Capitol. So,
Okay.
or maybe a close
It's been
second.
there almost as long.
Right?
So the capital is near Parthenon, actually.
Yeah,
right in the middle
it's
there.
funny. How do you get to the Capitol? You go to Parthenon, go up 3 blocks.
Right.
Yep.
That's funny. 50 years, though. That is incredible.
Yeah, it's really neat.
That is impressive. I
Yeah.
don't even
We're really
know.
excited. It's
So
pretty
we're-
rare for a restaurant to make it that long. So
it's
we're
rare for
honored
just-
to be a part of
We're
that.
Yeah.
just steering in a different direction. Yeah. Still
Yeah.
working with family, which is always interesting, you know, but
I
now we're
wanna-
going in a different direction.
I mean, I'd love to have you guys on another time because we're running out of time here,
Sure.
but I want to know the story about dealing with family and either
a whole
the
other
transition,
story.
how that worked, and when you're like yogurt chips, and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
yeah,
This
that's-
isn't what we do.
This
or
is
whatever.
exactly
Whole
how
other
it
show.
happened. But now they're like, yeah, let's do it. They
All right.
love it.
Yeah, there is some resistance
Yeah.
with everything all along
I mean,
the way
just
when you deal
any
with family.
change, right?
Any
You
change.
could be like, hey, we're going to change the doorknobs.
Yeah.
Or, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa.
Dealing with old school
You sound like
Greeks.
you've worked with family.
I have not, but I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
It's always
and So I
interesting.
don't.
Yeah.
That's when I was like,
Right.
oh.
We're family too, but it's different family you choose. And
Right.
yeah, I love working with her. It's amazing.
No, I mean, it was difficult for a while until we really defined our roles. You know.
Oh, and
now,
trust me, on a daily basis, it still gets difficult. But we're always learning.
what are you
Get honest
talking
here.
about?
No, but you're always
I
learning.
am a
You don't-
joy to work with.
But you
Don't
can't take
forget
anything
it.
personal. You're always learning and improving and helping each other grow, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
So yipsyogurtchips.com.
Yep.
And people can buy stuff or buy these there. How many varieties do you
Parthenon.
have?
Yeah, we have 3 right now.
3. Okay,
Yep.
so these are
Yeah,
them.
super berry, almond butter, banana, and cocoa sea salt.
All right, nice. I love it. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having us. This
having
is
us.
great.
This is
Really
cool.
enjoyed it.
I love
Loved
it.
it.
Yips Yogurt Chips got an awesome name, and Parthenons with gyros. You can't go wrong. I love me some gyros.
Yeah.
This
Come
has
say
been
hi.
Authentic Business Adventures, a business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We are underwritten locally by the Bank of Sun Prairie. You could do us a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like, big old thumbs up button, and if you could do us even bigger favor, comment, ask questions for Dimitri and Erin, and let them know. What do you like? What do you want to know about Yips, producing food, gyros, all that jazz.
Or even what you don't like, so we can get better.
Yeah, right. Name of the game. Name of the game.
Always
Always be
improving.
improving. I love it. My name is James Cademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com, as well as Draw In Customers Business Coaching, offering business coaching services for entrepreneurs looking for growth on the web at drawincustomers.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners and viewers, and our guests, Erin and Dimitri. Tell me the website one more time.
Yipsyogurtchips.com.
I'm like, it's got to be on here. Yips,
Or you can just search it. It'll pop up.
It's on there easy. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night. Podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.